Welcome to a conversation with Joe Caruso. Joe's guest today is Ziz. Hi, Joe. How are you doing today?
I'm having actually one of the best days I've had in a long time. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. I've got Ziz playing with his camera to make himself on screen.
I
And
wish I could see him. I can't see him.
I can see you, Joe.
Oh, there you go, baby. There's that lovely mug. How you doing, man?
I'm well. I'm well. Just had a little mishap, but I'm all good.
Okay, good. Well, I loved our last conversation. We never met. Mike, the producer, does all this. But I've been really excited about this conversation. How about you? How have you been?
I've been good. You know, just some wackiness happening in the world, but just trying to navigate that. And, you know, I don't know if you remember, but I enjoyed the conversation you had with Alex Berkelis. I mean, it was awesome. And it was just so fun just to see the interaction and what you do. So I'm a big fan.
Yeah, you're a sweetheart. Yeah, I'm really lucky to talk. I mean, I spend my whole day talking to brilliant people and who influence others, and I'm dedicated to it in my life. So it's really cool. So I'm so glad all the people of Conversation with Joe get to see you today because you got such great stories to tell. And I always ask, as you know, how is your mind today? And I ask it because we always assess our bodies every day, especially as we age, you know. And we teach kids fingers and toes, but they're like, why? Well, because we're old. But the bottom line is we never assess our minds. A teacher never says to you in a school, how's your mind today?
Yeah, my mind's good. You know, but you're right though. It's a question. It's that particular topic is happening much more these days than in the past. And in my particular case, like if on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low and 10 being high, I would say I'm an 8.5. However, there's some things that are just happening in the world or just having me a little sad, just circumstances. But all in all, you know, my mindset, solid 8.5. I'm super excited to play bocce ball tonight. I get my competitive spirit. You know that, you know, when you talked about getting old and your body not moving around nearly as much. So, you know, being a former athlete, I go slow these days, do a little YogaSculpt and bocce ball. Bocce ball is awesome. That's how I get my competitive spirit moving and out there and playing, and you know, a lot of strategy involved, so it's super fun.
You hit my Italian heritage with that one. So I gotta ask you, okay, first, I'm not sure the audience knows who you are. I do, with great respect. So let's just tell them, what years did you play ball? What ball did you play? How much damage did it do? And what did it lead you to?
So played 3 sports in high school: football, track, and also played basketball. So earned a football scholarship to the University of Maryland, College Park, played there 4 years. Technically, I was there 5 years. I redshirted my first year. So I graduated in 4. I ended up playing as a graduate student. My 5th year, I got drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. So my first job out of college, Kansas City Chiefs. So I lived there.
No, I'm not a sports guy. That's football, right?
Yes, football.
Okay.
Football.
Okay.
So yeah, so I played wide receiver at the University of Maryland, also played that same position.
I know that position.
Yeah.
That requires speed and hand coordination and memory.
Yeah, you know, I would say no doubt about the speed, but you know what it's more about? It's about just the willingness to compete, understand defenses, be in communication with your quarterback, understand your strengths, also your weaknesses, and catching the ball. So yeah, no doubt, eye-hand coordination the more speed you have doesn't necessarily equate to being more successful on the field.
No.
A lot of people, a lot of people would say Jerry Rice, arguably the best wide receiver ever. If you lined him up with a 40-yard dash, he probably wouldn't come across super fast. On field, game time, unbelievable speed. So, a lot of times, just like in life, your skills and talents have to translate into that job. When it comes time for you to perform, that's when you really need to be at your best.
All right. Now you told me in our interview, I could talk about anything. So I'm going there.
Okay.
All right. Oh. How do you know your weaknesses? I mean, you're a performer. You don't want to admit weakness. How do you learn weaknesses?
That's an interesting point. So I think as an athlete, I think most athletes know their weaknesses because every single day when you're at practice, you're going up against someone who is probably same level as you are. So you get to figure out what your strengths are. Like in my case, I was fast. Now I switched positions from quarterback in high school to receiver. Most people during that generation who played quarterback, they were probably the best athlete on the field.
All right, help us with that generation.
Oh, so I was in the 80s.
I hate you. You look really good. All right. So,
well, I appreciate that. Thank you. But that's all the yoga.
Oh, is it yoga? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I teach yoga. So yoga to me is, I wish I had that back during my college days and pro days. But anyway, going back to that point about your weaknesses and strengths, you figure out what your strengths are, but then you figure out what your weaknesses are because you're going up against someone every single day who, when you're going up against someone every single day, they get to know your nuances, you get to know theirs, and you start to figure out, all right, I'm not so good at this, so I need to do this, I need to make this adjustment. And I was a long strider. So when I ran, it looked like I was slow. So me chopping my feet down really quick and getting in and out of breaks wasn't my strong suit. So I needed to take advantage of my speed by getting people.
Barry Sanders did that.
Yes. Now, Barry Sanders, obviously, that guy could turn on a dime. He could turn on a dime, right, left. He could do some things
I did some work with some of these guys, and I watched his tapes, and I don't know how he did that. So you're a tall guy?
I'm like 6'1", but super long legs.
Okay, we're hitting a theme here that I think is worth exploring, and you know me. I always go into this kind of thing. I do it every week with my clients. When I was a kid, I was very talented, and I wrote letters to a young woman that I met, and she said, we were never going to be together. It was just a, truly platonic, lovely relationship. And she said, you're good at everything. I'm only good at one thing. You have a curse. It was a good lesson. I read that in college dorm room. I'm never sure that. My wife will see this, so okay. But it was the point. My point is that all the business books talk about is focus on your strengths, focus on your strengths, focus on. What about your weaknesses, man? If you don't know those, which are in the mind, in your case, physically, but in my client's case, in their mind, that's where the opportunity is. Because if you know what you can't do, you can't go to your left. Don't go to your left.
Right.
Especially if you're up against a guy. Right? That was funny. Especially if you're up against a guy that can go that way faster than you can or better than you can.
Right.
And
well, so
You have to know that.
Right. Well, the point you're making, if you understand your weaknesses, then you hire individuals to compensate for that. And that's the beauty of having a team.
Tell me more.
Well, when you have a team, so, you know, if you, let's say a college team or a pro team. Pro team has a limited number of people on their roster. So there's only so many people that can play. So sometimes you just get to a point where everyone who can play can play. But if you're at a college roster, you got like 3-4 receivers or 3-4 people at each position. You know, so a coach will have an opportunity to be like, you know what, this receiver is a better blocker, so we're going to put him in on this particular play because we want to take advantage of his strength. And it may not be that the
designated hitter in baseball.
Yeah, there's a designated hitter in baseball. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, but that person only hits. He's not in the infield or he's not in the outfield.
Yeah, I met Gates Brown, and he was in the 68, 67, 68 World Series Tigers. And we had a very private conversation for about 3 hours. He told me about the black experience back in baseball in those days. Brutal. He was hired out of prison, by the way. Sign this contract or do your time. Beautiful man. And he ended up a designated hitter because he couldn't run anymore. And they'd put him in whenever they needed a hit because he would get a hit. I'm sorry, I have a new puppy.
Right. So his weakness was running, and they put him in for his strength to hit. So that way he wouldn't. And then when he probably, you know, what if he got a home run, he just had to run the bases at a leisurely pace. But if he got it,
they would pull him out. So
exactly.
There's an old story that Gates told me, and I asked him about it. Do you? You're not old enough to know that.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Well, this is old times. So they're in the dugout, and he orders a hot dog loaded because they're in the 8th inning. He's probably not going to play, and it's loaded, and he can't wait. And a hot dog was expensive for him on his salary, and so he. I said, I heard this story, Gates. Is this true? Now here's the story. And it was true. Billy Martin was the coach. He told me. And they were at a home game, so they got white uniforms. And you know how that works, right?
Yeah.
All right. So he orders a hot dog out of the dugout from the guy in the stands. He throws in the hot dog, the fans go crazy. They don't want this shit. So he takes it and he's about to eat it. And Billy Martin looks over and they need a hit. And he goes, Gates, you're up. Now he knows if he leaves the hot dog, there will not be a hot dog left when he comes back. Or it will be desecrated. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course, right? So takes the hot dog. He figures I'll get a hit. I'll get to first base. I'll come back. I'll eat my hot dog. He stuffs it inside his shirt.
No way.
I'm telling you this story secondhand. True story. He told me this. Puts it inside his shirt. White uniform. He gets a hit. It's not a single. It's a stretch dump. He has to slide into second base.
Of course, right?
Of course. So he I'm sorry, this is just the funniest story. And he's telling, you know, before he died, he says it made a complete mess of my uniform and we're on TV. So then they call him a pinch runner, of course, because he can't run out. And he goes back to the dugout. And he's got this chili cheese dog all over his uniform that he has to eat. I said, is that true? He said, absolutely. It reminds me that life is chaotic, which is a conversation I had with a big CEO, a billion-dollar CEO this morning. We can't plan the details. We can only plan the direction. And then we deal with the currents and the storms and the challenges and the help.
Well, you think about football. Football is very much like that. You know, play is called in the huddle. You know, you go up to the line of scrimmage, and all of a sudden the defense has the perfect defense against that play. So the quarterback's got to call another play. Calls another play.
Call an audible, I heard.
Yeah, he audibles. Yeah, he audibles to another play. And then there are times when, let's say, the defensive player makes a really good play, gets by the offensive lineman. Then the quarterback's got to make a play in order to get the ball where it needs to go. So it's you have to be agile, you have to be flexible, you have to be adaptable. All those things come into play when you play sports. It translates into the business world. I mean, things shift all the time.
So you learn the basics, and then you have to be flexible
and adaptable. But you have to know and understand what your strengths are. Because sometimes if you take the ego out of play and say it's a team environment and you're working with some other individuals and you're collaborating and they look to you for something, and let's say you're the team lead and you're like, you know what, you're better suited for this particular task. I'd like for you to lead this project. You take the ego out of the way because you know and understand that individual's strengths line up much better for the task.
How do you help people take their ego out of the way? Because it was very most misunderstood concept. I remember the first time that I was in Detroit, listening to a station, they called it like jazz, and they played Lionel Richie, and I said, really? So how do you, and the ego's the same way. It's become that term. So how do you help a man in sports, and I've interviewed some female athletes, you probably have seen them, driven to get their ego out of the way, know their weaknesses and play their strengths. How do you do that? How do you teach that? Because I know you teach that.
It's a hard concept to teach. It's really difficult, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, and you have to figure out like what drives that particular individual. And if that individual is driven by certain things, if that individual wants to succeed and accomplish the task at hand, if they know and understand that that's the real win, hopefully they get to that point where like, you know what, if I'm going to be a hindrance to that, I need to step out of the way, or I need to shift to make sure others can step up. So, but it's hard to teach, and it takes time. So you have to, obviously when you're working with someone, you have to have a really good, solid relationship. They have to know and understand, like when you say something to them or you're coaching them, that this is coming from a place of where I'm supporting you to be your best version. And as you know, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Like when you first start working with someone, you're not going to say that unless you know the person really well or a personal friend. And you're probably not going to coach your personal friend. But generally speaking, individuals who play a sport, some sport, doesn't really matter what sport, whether it's individual or team, they do know deep down inside, maybe I should have let so-and-so do that because they were better suited for that. A prime example is, let's use baseball. If you have a switch hitter, then if that person can bat left and also right, that's awesome. But as you well know, there are times when the manager needs to make a choice. They don't have a switch hitter up to bat. They got to, you know what? The lefty's up. We got to take that lefty out that's batting and put in a righty. So all those things come into play. So ultimately, the reason why the manager is doing that, or the reason why an individual should do it, is because they want to achieve the goal, which is to either win or to accomplish the game plan that like a business may have, or third quarter numbers, or whatever it may be.
Somebody asked me one time, that's brilliant. Somebody asked me one time, how would you define personality? My answer, which I'm writing about now in my new book, is a pattern of personal proclivities.
I like that.
It works. And I bounced it off of several psychoanalysts. It's passed the smell test so far. So I'm writing it. But the bottom line is that to help someone understand their personal proclivities sometimes feels like an attack on their person.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you just said that I heard loud and clear, if you bring someone to their higher goal, they'll look up instead of looking down. And looking down is to your personal proclivities and protection and provincialism. And looking up is to what do I want to do?
Right.
It's a critical aspect of helping people. And I admire you for your ability to do that. So what are you looking forward to? We only have a few minutes.
Just I love helping people. It's one of the things that I'm kind of wired to do. So like you said about strengths, it's like in my being. So once I realized that, I was like, all right, let me go get some training, so that I can get better at it. And then in doing so, you start to understand when you coach people, there are times when you should talk and there are times when you should just be quiet and listen. And, to all the parents out there, use your children as Jedi trainers. They help you become better if you just listen, which is really, really difficult because you want the best for them. And there's love and all those things that are involved as a parent. But they are one of the best opportunities to help you get better at listening, which in our country, we all need to do a better job of.
Our country doesn't listen. We form ideas and lock in and fight. And I could say that if I did sales training, I used to, I don't, I will again with the right opportunity. But if you just shut up, the person will tell you exactly how to sell them. Just listen.
Right. Just listen. Yeah, which is really difficult. I mean, it's, I actually thought active listening was the highest form of listening, but then, there's empathetic listening. And if you can listen at that level, if we could all get to that point where we really activate our superpower of empathy, oh my God, this world would be so awesome. But we got a long way to go. We got a lot of work to do.
One of the greatest things I ever learned from one of the top psychoanalysts in the world, who have been all over the world with, is be fully and empathically in the moment with the other. And I hope I did that with you today.
You did. Always love talking to you. It's super fun because you're always thinking. You have to be present because you just don't know what's going to happen. So like you said, if you're not listening, you're not present, you'll say something, another person's like off thinking about whatever that response was instead of being present to what the actual circumstances call for.
And you're a very candid and honest man who shares openly.
Thank you.
Well, let's see if there are questions. Michael, our producer.
There's one question from the audience who says that Ziz's book works with youth and your books work with adults. What are the similarities or differences with working with youth versus working with adults?
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Can I take a first stab?
Yeah, oh God, I was hoping you would.
So I would say the beauty of working with youth are they have a great BS meter. They know if you are there and you truly care for them. what happens over time as the youth become more sophisticated and they can mask their feelings and all those type things, you really don't know what's going on until you spend a lot of time with adults and you get to the nitty gritty of really what's happening when they share after you've built that trust. So I would just say over time, like what's happened is the youth, because of they aren't as sophisticated, they tend to be more open if you can connect. Whereas adults, lots of levels of complexity.
I write in my book, The Greatest Desire is to be right, the right frontal cortex. We just want to justify everything we know, and we harden it in. That was brilliant. It said, I'm not good at working with youth. You're brilliant at it. Like, you know, we have 14 young kids here every week, and we nurture them and take them places. And my wife's an artist. I'm not the teacher. You are. And I'm amazed how you can take such a high level of talent, skill, and a career and bring it to the youth. And I honor that and thank you for doing that. Is there anything, Elizabeth?
No, just thinking like I'm it's excited to hear about your upcoming book. I mean, that sounds like a lot of fun.
It's cool. Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah. All right, I'll send you a pre-press version.
Awesome. Would love to read that.
Yeah. And keep in touch. Let me know what you're doing. And if I can help in any way, I will. You're a good guy. You're really a good guy.
Appreciate it, Joe. Thank you very much for having me, and everyone have a great day.
Excellent. Thank you for today. Our next conversation with Joe Caruso is May 26th with Lee Weintraub. Hopefully you can tune in. Take care and have a great afternoon.